All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. It is Monday, and it's Motivation. My name is Jason Flame, and today I'm joined by our guest, and our guest is Mr. Jeremy Jackson. Jeremy is the owner of Black Belt Leadership Academy in Sanford, North Carolina. He's an avid obstacle course and long distance runner. Jeremy is also a motivational coach and trainer. And I can remember when we first met through Martial Arts Industry Association, through Maya. We actually met by you becoming a client, and we worked together. And then we formed a friendship and a bond through talking about running and racing. And I'm wearing my Spartan shirt for you today. Um,
Nice.
so, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time to be with me today.
You got it, my man. I appreciate you having me on today. I was been kind of like it's like one of those like pump up feelings for it, going live and everything like that with you.
Yeah, no, it's going to be cool. And we got a couple people watching so far. And if you guys are watching right now live and you have any questions throughout the interview, please feel free to just drop questions, comments, anything there in the comments, and we'll read those out to you guys. So,
Yeah.
Jeremy, if we can get started, I really love to dive into everybody's kind of background and personal stories because I think that can be inspiring and motivating in and of itself. And I think it just kind of lets everybody get to know you a little bit better and where you're coming from. So if you could just start off by, introducing yourself briefly and going into maybe talking about your childhood and growing up and some things that you remember from back then.
Man, that's pulling out some old memories. Childhood wasn't that long. It feels like it wasn't that long ago, but sometimes calling out those thoughts from it has been a while back. Yeah. Man, I got started in like, especially when it comes to the martial arts. I got started back in like 88 or 87, somewhere in that time frame when it was kind of like done out of the basements of churches and stuff like that. That's exactly where I started my journey off at. And it was kind of entertaining because like I get there like I mean, if you go back even further than that before I even started, I was always like on the camera right here, I probably look a little bigger than what I am, but you meet me in person, maybe 5'5" on a good day. That happened like maybe sixth grade, and I stopped growing then. But I was always like the smallest kid in the class. Usually I was picked last for like, all right, we're gonna play a game, and last one standing is like, well, you just take him to that side. I was kind of like the odd man out most of the time, and I couldn't seem to really, find my groove into anything because it was like I was like, all right, there's got to be something. And my mom and dad had heard about this place where they taught karate out of the basement of a church. It was the pastor that taught it, and let me segue really fast. The pastor that taught me martial arts is actually the one that married me and Crystal almost 10 years ago. And I
Mm,
thought he was like in his 80s then. I mean, my man, I mean, he kept just kicked on going and going. But yeah, so I showed up that first night and I was like, wow, I'm digging this. Cause like back then it was like everybody was in the room together. It didn't matter if you were 5 years old or if you were well, like the teacher. I'm not saying he was 85 then. I think he was like in his 60s, maybe. But like everybody in between. And the
hmm
classes went for 2 hours. And after the first night there, I just remember either my mom or my dad won. I cannot remember exactly which one picked me up, but I remember the feeling I had from that night was like, oh, I'm going to be doing this for a while.
hmm Now you say you live in Sanford, North Carolina now. Is that where you're from, born and raised? Where'd you
Oh,
come up?
yeah. I mean, pretty much, I was one of the last few people that was actually born in what was the old hospital here in Sanford. I get questioned about it every once in a while because I'm sure my accent sounds very strong here, but like here in the area, a lot of people miss it. They're like, "Are you from here?" Or I'm like, "Yeah, this is born, raised, and stayed."
Nice, nice. And so you went to school all the way up through high school in that same area.
I did. I transferred like elementary school. I bounced around to four different, maybe three or four, I cannot remember now, different
hmm
public schools, just because of the way the grades flip flopped around. And
hmm
then in seventh grade, I started attending Grace Christian School and stayed there from seventh grade to 12th grade.
Got it. And talk about your parents a little bit. What did they do, and what are some things that you remember about your parents as you were growing up? How did they influence your life?
Yeah, gotcha. And they had definitely installed like a work ethic, staying constantly going. My dad, I remember, I don't remember the whole detailed story about what he started off with, but like he went into his business for himself, becoming like as we called it, a roofer extraordinaire. Tearing off the shingles, putting the shingles back on the roof. You got a leak in the roof. He was the one to call. My mom, she was more of the my memory it serves me was the nurturing. She was like, all right, let's sit down, talk about this, let's go through it. I remember, a couple of times growing up, like one of my first tournaments I ever went to that was down in New Orleans. I met some people there and I came back and I'm like, I'll never see them again. I was like very upset about it. And she was like, she always felt like I was like I could go to her to talk to her about those types of problems. And she's
Hmm.
like, sometimes we'll meet people like on that X and the X may stay together for a little bit, or the X may clear off completely. But it's that
Hmm.
moment in time that we get to spend with each other means a lot.
Nice. And so you talked about your dad having a really strong work ethic, and I know you to be someone, especially when we first met, and we were getting working on your martial arts school, and you wanted to, up your business knowledge. I mean, you were all in. I mean, you were so easy to work with, because as soon as you adapted to something, you just took it and ran with it, and continued on. And I see you doing the same now. So it sounds like you got that same work ethic from your dad.
Yeah, he's definitely given me the ideas on how to stay steady with it, even if it's hard, even if it's like sometimes the motivation comes from being told you can't do it,
Hmm.
that whole reverse polarity thing, and then all of a sudden like, well, you're not going to really be able to do that, and it's like, okay, well, I'll take the challenge, let's see what happens with that.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to say it served me perfect all through life, but it's definitely been a good help.
I think that's something that a lot of martial artists kind of embody, is that if you tell me I can't do something, that's just fuel to the fire to where, like, I'm just going to get after it that much more.
Yeah, it's like watch me after I get done doing it. It's like that. It's like growing up in the martial arts. I always remember that one old poem. Oh, what was it? It was from like the EFC or something like that. That's just going back old days, right? And it was like the uh, don't tell me, don't stand in the way of me telling I can't do it as you see me buckle right in with a bit of a grin. And he was the one that did it, or something along those lines. It was a
Right.
great little poem.
Right, right, right. Very cool. Well, so you talked a little bit about how you got involved in martial arts, but let's talk about some of the other activities. Maybe when you were talking about it, you got picked last, weren't really into a lot of sports, but did you play other sports regularly? Coming up as you were growing up, did you play sports in high school?
Well, like I said, everything really for sport started off in the martial arts. It was like elementary and then the beginning of junior high. And then in seventh grade, when I finally moved over to Grace Christian School with my parents' idea of it, and I didn't want to do it. I was like, I don't want to go there. And it was mainly because I was leaving all my friends behind. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? They were going to different other middle schools. And here I was going to a new place, didn't know anyone there. But I was like, all right, we're going. We locked it in, and that's when I started playing like soccer. And it's funny because I did martial arts for several years, never got really injured, I guess you could say. It was a busted nose here, a black eye there, maybe a bleedy lip a little bit. But I go out and I try out for soccer at the school, and on tryouts, the ball hits my arm and breaks my both bones in my arm.
Wow.
Didn't even know it. We finished out the tryouts, we finished out the run, and I basically just caught up in my mom's car and just kind of like laid there. And she's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "I don't know, my arm hurts." And to shrink that up a little bit, they finally take me to the doctor, and it shows it. It's like both bones perfectly broke all the way through.
Wow. That's pretty intense for getting hit by a ball.
Yeah,
Someone was
because
kicking pretty hard.
I was a little closer to him than I probably should have been. And the way my memory calls it back is like, all right, here comes something at your face. You better high block. And it was that,
Right.
the
Boom.
arm coming straight up towards it. And if I can remember correctly, he was like a junior or a senior in high school when he kicked that ball at it. But it didn't stop me though. That was like one of those things, like I said, it's like almost telling me that I'm not supposed to be there. So like I went back the very next year and it was eighth grade then, and I thought I had a cool little gig with the soccer team. All right. I was the guy that if the balls got kicked out of bounds, I chased them down and would bring them back and switch them out for somebody. And I wore
Mm.
this little jacket. And I remember showing up at church one Sunday, and there was this one of the kids there. He's a big talker kind of guy. And he goes, "Man, I hear all the players that are no good, the coach lets them go and runs off and gets the balls." And I'm like, He's talking about me. I was like, oh, we got to finish this out. So by my senior year, I made like second team all state. I was starting all the games. I was finishing all the games. It was one of those like you said, it's almost like I got to prove that kind of wrong and go
Right.
after it.
Right. Now, did you play any other sports, any other activities throughout high school?
Nod soccer became the main one.
Uh-huh.
I thought about a couple other ones, but we only had like back then was at the school I was at was soccer, basketball, and baseball, and that was really it.
Hmm.
And I felt like, and I was just still involved so much in the martial arts. It was like if I did one sport, then I'm turn around and 6 weeks later playing a different one, and then I felt like it was just taking too much time away to do all of that.
Yeah. And what happened for you after high school? When you got out of high school, did you go to college? Did you go and further your education?
As for college, I think I took two classes at the community college, and then that was about as far as I went. I can't even tell you what they were. It was Western Civilization, and it was beginning weight training because I had really no idea about where I was going to go with it. And it's so funny because the guy that taught the beginning weight training class, he still works at the community college here in town. And he's actually having me come out this Wednesday to work with his students who wants to be like group training instructors because he
Mm.
brings in other people. And he's always enjoyed how I taught because I like went out and taught last year. He goes, man, or not last year, it was like 2 years ago. And he's like, you got to do that again next time I have you out. And so I'm
Mhm.
going out to see him again this Wednesday.
That's a pretty cool callback, right? I mean, you didn't really college. It sounds like college was not for you, but you're getting called back to help and teach and give some knowledge in another way. What was it? What did you not have goals to go to college, or did you not have just that drive to get to that next level of education? Because a lot, I find that again also a lot of martial artists found this love of martial arts, and they kind of had this entrepreneur attitude and wanted to work for themselves and start a business and school, because that's exactly what it was for me. It's like school was kind of there, but it was really more of a backup plan than anything else. I never really had the goal of going long term to school. What were your thoughts then coming out of high school?
Man, I was like, I'm gonna try college. I didn't have like anything, like basically I was paying out of pocket. And then I went straight into after that one semester, I was like, I'm just not just I felt like I had already done high school and everything else. And it was like all those years. And I just wanted something to kind of like, I guess, cruise control it for a little bit,
Mm,
So I went into construction and I started getting mixed, and I shouldn't say mixed up. I got called by one of my instructors, and he's who's my father-in-law now, and he's like, "Hey, I got a business plan for you," and it was the old Quick Star Amway thing going
mm,
around and stuff like that. And I was like, "All right, I'll take a look at it." So I went to a couple of the conferences, and I really enjoyed the idea. They actually really hard. They planted that one really good into me about running your own business, about getting involved in it. Because I had like a sour patch with my old instructor in martial arts for a little bit there. Just something with two or more heads is considered a monster sometimes, and it was best just to kind of separate ways out. But that really got me going. I was like, I can really do this as a business. It took me several years. Don't get me wrong. It was like 2002. I was still teaching, like a couple of other spots here and there, like out of
mhm.
gyms and things like that. And then 2008, I think. Yeah, 2008 ish is when we actually opened up Black Belt Leadership Academy.
Mhm.
And it was kind of funny because it's like we opened it up, and if you remember back then, that's when everything went like
Mhm.
I kept my full time job that became a part time job of doing like prosthetics and orthotics. But to circle back to the question of like I just didn't get higher education was like there, but it didn't really call to me. It didn't really
Mhm.
like pull me in that direction.
Right. Well, and then, you know, ironically, how we met and how we got in touch was again through Maya and through the consulting. And so there was a desire for higher education. It just wasn't in the form of going to college, right? Because
That's it.
going through Maya, and learning the business systems and learning how to, be more effective in running your school. Was something that you were very passionate about. So let's get back to the beginning of martial arts. You said you started, mid '80s. How old were you when you started martial arts?
I'm guessing somewhere around 10 is what I
10 years
always kind of put my thumb at, because it was like around fourth or fifth. No, I know it was like around fourth grade.
old. And you remember classes were 2 hours long. Kids were 5 years old to 50, 60 plus years old. It was all a big group. What was the system of martial arts that you started training in?
It was called the American Kaido Association. So Aikido, I believe, is the way they pronounced it. And I remember seeing the symbol of it is it looks like a star, but instead of like the two edges being out this way, it was kind of curved. But that's only if you were looking at it, if I remember correctly, the wrong way. It was supposed to be turned sideways a little bit,
Mm,
and it was actually a spear penetrating a shield. So like the idea behind it, if I can remember correctly, because it's been years since I've listened to it, is like it was like a Korean style, and the instructor had been in it. It's like you could trace back his lineage, and he had like all these notebooks about like different board breaking, brick breaking, and things like that, about how the physics worked on it, like the little diagrams you would see drawn out, like in the Jeet Kune Do book of Bruce Lee, the Tale of Jeet Kune Do, how he had those little drawings and
mhm.
like arcs and stuff. And I remember seeing those. I couldn't make heads or tails out of it then. It's just like an old memory in the back of my head. And I
Right.
think one of the reasons I really got involved with it, like I mentioned earlier, was, just being, man, the smallest kid around. I got pretty much bullied most of the time, got picked on most of the time. I found out when I went into fifth and sixth grade that they actually put us in two different classes. You start off kind of like a home room, like you would in middle school and high school, and
Mhm.
then they put one group of kids that need a little extra help in one class, and the ones that didn't need hardly help in the next class. And I was like, well, why am I not with them over there? And then the same point proved. I was like, I gotta prove myself again. So by sixth grade, I'd moved myself into it, but it was still that bullying component. If you're getting pushed around, I mean,
Mhm.
I could get into detail about a story in third grade, getting surrounded on the playground and just getting whooped up on. And I just remember like tears just rolling down my face. And I think shortly thereafter, fourth grade came in, and that's when, fell into the martial arts.
Yeah, and having been bullied myself when I was younger, we all have those stories where that really stick in our head, kind of when it started or something that really stood out. But we also have kind of that story of when we stopped getting bullied and we stopped getting picked on. Can you share with us that story? Can you remember a point where that all ended?
I don't remember the point exactly where it ended at, because I remember going to, when I first moved to the new school, I remember like the way I remember the story going was I still getting picked on by some of the kids that knew I was in martial arts and everything like that. But then it started not having that same effect on me. It was like a switch somewhere around like eighth grade, if I can remember correctly. And it
Uh,
was like, sure, they said something, but it was more like water off a duck's back, just kind of like bounced off.
hmm hmm Yeah, I remember it was in fifth grade. I had this one kid that was just always out for whatever reason. He just loved to get at me, and it was really silly because he started chasing me, and I was pretty quick, I guess. And I remember jumping over a bench, and I cleared it, but he went to jump over the bench and just ate it face first. And it was literally from that day forward, and the story got out that like I beat him up. So it's interesting because I never even laid a hand on him, but because he got hurt and he was crying and everybody remembers that, I remember that story for me of when things just kind of ended there with that, in elementary school type bullying. But of course, we face bullying even in middle school, high school, even in our adult lives, that maybe some people wouldn't even think of as bullying. We just deal with it, a whole lot differently now. Um, Talk about, growing up in martial arts from 10 years old through middle school through high school. How did martial arts change your perception, like we said, and change your level of confidence as you were going through life?
It kept giving me more challenges, I guess you would say. Because like when I was first starting off with Master Strickland through the Akaido, through the basement and stuff like that, he got us involved probably about a year after I was there, or maybe it was sooner than that. In the AAU, going to the tournaments and things like that. So I would show up. We did like the states, we would do the regionals, and I always remember not a lot of people being there. And it was like, real small groups, like 5 or 6 people per, category for ages and stuff like that. And me and my buddy David, we kind of grew up together in the martial arts, just kind of like always get in the back of his station wagon they had. It was an older station wagon. It was the one with the seat actually looked out the back window, and it was like the weirdest thing. And I remember qualifying and actually, making it to the nationals. And then one year I made it to like junior Olympics, and it was like, wow, look where I'm at, compared to where I was at like a little while back. When I made it to nationals and junior Olympics, I think my highest ranking I ever got in nationals maybe was fourth place. And part of it, I believe, was because I had misheard the number, because they didn't call you at Jeremy Jackson, you're on deck. It wasn't nothing like that. It was like number 4327, you're going to be up next. And I think another guy that already got knocked out got moved up to that spot. But I still got four, so I'll take it and whatnot. And it was like, it was seeing that growth looking back now, like it's not like you hear Steve Jobs talks about it. I couldn't see the dots going forward, but looking back, I can see where those dots connected and really elevated, really pushed me in that direction. Like I said, to build that confidence up, to feel like, yeah, I'm a small guy. I get, haha, very funny. You're not the first one to come up with that joke. Oh, my head's bigger than my body. Yes. Okay, good. Can we get a little more clever here? Can you come up with something else? So it became more of that kind of game for me. And it's like, what was that style, that little thing that came out a little while back called verbal judo? That's kind of like what it felt
Right.
like at the time.
Right, right, right. Hey guys, we're here with Jeremy Jackson. If you're watching live and you have any questions you want to throw in the comments, just please let me know, and I'll be happy to throw them up here and ask Jeremy some more questions. But we're just talking about competition. Did you compete a lot in martial arts as you were coming up the ranks?
I did for a little bit, and then like switched out from different martial arts systems. I got really involved in Chinese Kempo karate for the longest time. And my instructor came up and he's like, "Hey, we're going to start doing full contact kickboxing. You want to do it?" And I remember the newspaper even coming out doing a small article about it. And I was like, "Yeah, I love the idea of a challenge. I'm only 16 years old, maybe 17 at the time."
Hmm.
And got involved in it. And that right there, I was like, wow. I didn't do very long, don't get me wrong. I think I had like maybe 4 fights, and it was like, um, I got like a state championship one time out of one of them because somebody didn't show up, or I don't even remember how the story went. I just remember actually coming out of the ring with the belt, and I was like, it's like, I felt like professional wrestling, you know what I mean? Because I actually had a belt to hold up for a second.
Right, right. Very cool. So competition was kind of short lived, and then did you get into teaching in high school? Is that when you started, or was it after high school that you started teaching and assisting with martial arts?
That's a great question. So like I want to say it was around 94. And so that'd be about my 11th grade, 10th grade year. And my instructor was like summertime. There was nothing happening. And my instructor goes, "Hey, you want to teach an adult class Tuesdays and Thursdays at 12 o'clock?" I said, "Sure, why not?" It felt weird because like I'd always
Hmm.
had that perspective of, if you're an adult, you know more than I do. And who am I as a 16-year-old kid to be telling you what to do? And that really broke that one down. I enjoyed that. And then school started back up, so I couldn't really teach no more during that time. And he goes, "I got an idea. Here's what we're going to do." So he reached out to like 5 daycares, and that was like learning how to teach by fire. Because it goes back. It had ages of like 4 and 5 year olds up to 13-year olds that you're just trying to work with. I think maybe like 40 minutes one time a week. And wow, it was impressive because I remember my mindset at the time was, my instructor told me, goes, "Look, sometimes some kids are they're gonna see what they can get away with a little bit, and then they're gonna try to do a little bit more, and then a little bit more." And I was like, "Nah, they're not gonna, they don't do that to you." Yeah, yeah, they did that to me. And I had to learn. It was like I said, learned by the fire of going through it and figuring things out. But that's when I really like, he was the first one to give me the idea of actually be able to do martial arts, as a career,
Hmm.
as a full-time gig. Because I remember showing up at his school and I asked him, I was like, because in my mind, pastor the church, then he taught karate. Got it. So if I'm going to do karate, I have to do another kind of gig, another kind of job, and then teach karate. And I asked him, I was like, "Well, what do you do?" He goes, "This is it." I'm like, I mean, no. I mean, like, what do you do for work? He goes, no, this is it. I was like, you're telling me I can do this for a job? He's like, yeah. And I was like, full time? He's like, yeah. And I was like, nah. I mean, it took me another, what, 12 years to figure out I could do it as a job. And then 2008 is when we kicked this place into gear.
What was it about teaching martial arts where did you find that passion to teach? What was it about it that just really drew you into continuing to teach?
I guess it's that whole idea of like going back to where I was, and seeing other people go through it, whether it was the bullying, whether it was they needed, an outlet, whether it was just like, it's like kind of like a Sherpa, being side by side with others in the trenches with them. That kind of like that kind of even goes into like the OCR, the obstacle course racing, and everything like that we've done with people. Is like, you're right there with them. You're not just like the best way to put it is like you're with them going through it. And for me, teaching was like also diving deeper into the material, is
Hmm.
getting a better understanding of it. But it wasn't just that understanding of it. It's like I love the questions to ask. Well, why is this not working? Well, I really don't know. I've never thought of it that way. Let's figure it out. And it was almost like going through that problem solving method with them and
Hmm.
seeing people's lives change. Like this really threw me off probably back in, I don't even remember what year it was now because I've lost track of time. But I remember going to a soccer tournament. All right. And I got a booth set up because like somebody knew me. They're like, hey, you want to be a sponsor? You can set a booth up for martial arts at a soccer tournament. Sure.
Hmm.
Why not? Because everybody at a soccer tournament wants to talk to a martial arts guy. And, ain't nobody going to come talk to me very much. And I had this big old guy come up to me. He probably about a little over 6'2", muscular fella. He goes, everybody I know seems to know you. And I was like, I hope this is a good thing, sir. And he kind of laughed about it. And he said, I want my kids to be a part of what you've got going on. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, tell me a little more about that. And he had heard about all the things that we've done in the community from, doing back to school drives, where we deliver like almost a 50-gallon container of school supplies to each elementary school in the county. All right. Then all of a sudden, and you gave me this idea about the kickathon for feeding families. We're still doing that today. Our best year was almost 4 tons of food. And
Wow.
the kids go and buy it, they bring it back, we box it up, we deliver it. We started doing like what is it called? A ninja wrapping party. And that was one of the ninja wrapping party is where like the kids are bringing in like presents. I supply the paper and the tape and the snacks and the drinks, and the kids get to wrap presents up. We mark it down what it is, and then we deliver it to some of the churches in the areas that know the families that need it. And that right there is like seeing that difference, because that was one of the things that I wanted to do when I first started thinking about this place was how can we be involved with the community, because back in the old days it was like you just kind of stayed in your little basement, you stay in your element.
Hmm.
Nothing wrong with that, that's where you want to be at. But unfortunately that's not where I wanted to be at. So I was like, what can we do to make an impact in this community? And that's where the tagline, building a better community one black belt at a time. I'm sure someone else has used it, but I
Hmm.
kind of wanted to drive that in. And having him tell me that, I was like, you don't want me to teach your kids how to like, punch something and hit something? And that's not what he said. And that was like a great refrain for me for teaching martial arts.
And where does that all stem from? Because I think that everybody that gets involved in their community and everybody that gives back, there's something inside that. Where did that come from? That you wanted to be able to do that?
That's a great question to ask, because I thought about that as you were asking that. And it's like knowing, it's like one of the things I believe about confidence is knowing that you can make a difference. And it's not just knowing it, but seeing it and feeling what you've done and seeing the kids get excited about going out to where we go. It's called the CUOC, the Christian United Outreach Center, and watching them be excited about putting the boxes out for the families to come by and pick them up for Thanksgiving and giving that. Because I think our first thing we ever got involved with was Relay for Life. And
Hmm.
my thought process was, I'm not going to be here forever. And I want these things to still happen. I want the community to be involved. And most parents will tell me it's like, we want to do stuff like that, but we don't know where to go. And by the time it's vetted out to figure out where you want to go, it's already happened. So I
Hmm.
take all that legwork out. It's a logistical nightmare for me on some of the stuff, but
Hmm.
man, it pays off big just seeing how much the parents get involved with it, the kids get involved with it, and it's just huge.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that that's such a huge testament to you as a person and what you believe in and what you do in your school, because really think about it, when you can introduce these opportunities and these ideas or these projects and allow your students to participate in them. Imagine that ripple effect that it's going to have over time when they have children or when they go out in the community. It's something that my wife and I really pride ourselves on as well. Is like you said, we've been doing that kickathon. And that was a Maya idea that came out of a Maya seminar that we learned, about the kickathon and providing food for families in need. And it just really continued on from there. You mentioned Relay for Life, American Heart Association. There's all these different organizations. And so it makes your karate school a whole lot more than just teaching, obviously the kicking and punching, and well beyond the confidence and discipline and all of those things, but the art of giving back and helping your community. Because you know if if we can do that, if we can make a difference in even just one life, I mean, that's, and you've seen it, you've watched it happen. The recipients of these generosity is amazing. We've watched it for years, and we love those comments and feedback from our parents that tell us, you know the things I remember most about training at your martial arts school is when we went and did this project or that
Yeah.
project, or we helped these people. And it's like, we get really focused on the physical aspect, which is important, right? No doubt about it, right? Learning self-defense, is super important. But these other avenues, you just don't find all martial artists participating in those same types of activities. So tell me a little bit more about, you kind of sprinkled in some thoughts here about how you got into opening your own school, right? Because you taught for your instructor as a teenager, kind of dabbled in teaching here and there at different programs. What was it that really told you it's time to open Black Belt Leadership Academy, and how did that process start?
It started with me sitting in the emergency room, to be honest. And what had happened was I was not, I had no plans. I was like 25, 6, 7, somewhere in that time frame. I was just doing construction on the side as my main gig and then teaching out of a gym and like about 30 minutes down the road. Because I felt like teaching in the town that I had left the school that was still running. I felt kind of like weird about doing that because it was like, all right, I don't want to open up a place here and have the students try to figure out, do they want to stay with Master Jackson? Do I want to stay over here with my school I've been a part of? Because I'd been put through that growing up in a different school of like when Grace Christian had split up and a lot of people left and went different ways. I remember what that did to me. And it's like, I can't do that to others if I can help it. So I went
Mm-hmm.
off and I taught somewhere else. And um, one night I remember showing up for class and this guy comes in. And he's if I can remember correctly, he was a registered nurse, professional wrestler, and a pastor. And he was about like 6'1", 5'11", somewhere in that time frame. And he was built like one of the old cruiserweights from WCW. And he comes in that night. Me and him had grappled several times before. And I never tapped him out. My man, he was just like, he was good and smooth. He gave me the nickname textbook because when I went for the arm bar, it was like bam, 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 like just all the little basic moves of it and straight through the book. And that night didn't go so good for me. He said, he goes, I got some energy to work off. I was like, all right, I'll go with you. I've never tapped you out. And I hit the floor wrong with my foot and I tore my ACL, my PCL, my posterolateral corner. And I was like, man, um, I don't know what to do after this. This is my leg. This is what carries me around, doing construction and everything like that. I got to go up and down a ladder, working with my dad. I was like, how am I going to bounce back from this? And I fell into doing, a buddy of mine got me an interview with doing prosthetics where I was like making artificial limbs for people. And I was like 6 months from accident to having the surgery to fix it. And then another 6+ months of physical therapy. And I felt like the leg came back. And I was like, all right, we're going to give this another shot again. We're going to give this the best go we can, because I remember talking to my instructor at the time, and I told him, I was like, look, this cannot be the end of the story. This has to be a stepping stone. And it goes right back to like, don't tell me I can't do it. I'm going to show you that I can. Because the doctor, I remember him coming in after my first MRI, and he said his words were, "You'll be lucky to have a functional knee again." And
Mm-hmm.
I did not like that. And he was very smart in the sense that he did his first operation orthoscopically, looked in there and goes, "I don't want nothing to do with this. I'm going to send you to somewhere else." And thankfully, he sent me to a guy that found something else was actually torn inside too. That had that not been fixed, the ACL and PCL would have been worn out in 10 years, and I had to go right back through it again. And for the most part, no one can tell anything's wrong with my knee unless I point it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, knees back. Let's see what we can do. So 2008 came in. We found a building. Um, the landlords were like, yeah, we'll let you. Wait, what are you going to do? You want to teach karate? Wait a sec. Hold on. Then they thought about it. They're like, yeah, we're good. We'll let you do that. So I called them up 2 weeks later. They're like, no, we're getting older. We don't want no one getting hurt. We can't handle that anymore. And of course, like talking to grandparents is exactly how they were. They're great people. And then I was like, all right, well, if you hear about something, you just call me and let me know. And I was kind of like, shot down again. They called me up a month later, right after Christmas, if I remember correctly. And they're like, hey, we got physically sick after we told you yes. And then we said no. It's yours if you want it. I said, yes, I want it. It'll take me some time to get the ball rolling again. So that was like January. And I think we started our first classes in April. And my first class had like maybe 4 kids in it. And we just built up from that
So you opened your school with 0 students.
with 0 students because I was teaching 30 mile or 30 plus minutes down the road.
Right. And so for me, that would be totally foreign, and I know a lot of people have done it. But like for me, I learned that coming up, through my instructor, that I started at a rec center and built up a base, and then I went and got. So I mean, you really went in with a hope and a prayer that this was going to work because
I was
you're
testing
putting
how deep
everything
the
on the
water
line.
was with both feet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So how did that progress, and how fast did you see that school start to succeed?
It took us some time because it was, like I said, during the whole 2008 thing when everything was just going left to right to sideways. And I was probably honestly only halfway doing it. I was able to get a few kids in. Everybody in the town that I grew up in knew I was coming back. I reached out to friends, I reached out to family. I let
Hmm.
everyone know. And we went from like 4 students 2 nights a week. We started getting more classes in. I remember we started doing like 3 classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I was like, all right, let's kick in on the Mondays and Wednesdays. And it started getting out of my control. And I was like, wow, this is great. But let me back up a second there because I was keeping my prosthetic job the whole time. I was
Hmm.
going down there, I was working with them, and something happened there with changing the head prosthetist going somewhere else. And they brought someone else in, and they're like, we can't keep you anymore. And I'm like, whoa, 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 I'm not done yet. I'm still building this up so I can leave. And it was
Hmm.
almost like a kick in the pants to like really get it into gear. So when they put me off and let me go for a while, I remember being at a because I showed up at every function. If there was something going on, like I had a tent popped up and I was talking to everybody if you gave me enough time. So we're at this little festival, or big festival, I should say, called Broadway Our Way. We just got through doing a demo. I took all the kids with me. We're going to walk straight down the street. I got these little business card flyers. We're going to hand it out to everybody. Pass it out. Pass it out to everybody. And I'm talking loud. And I remember this older lady grabs a hold of me and pulls me to the side. And she goes, you do martial arts? I said, yeah. She goes, do you do Tai Chi? I was like, yeah. She goes, we have been looking for somebody to come to the community college to teach Tai Chi.
Hmm.
And I was like, how do I get in? What do I got to do? And she got me in teaching that. And it wasn't like a big thing, but it was something to say, hey, if I open my mouth up enough, somebody's going to hear what I got to say and I'm going to get an opportunity. And that was one of the opportunities that really helped keep pushing me in the right direction.
Right, and here you are. It's 2022, and so you've been in business 14 years, right?
It's crazy to say that, but yes.
And just coming through. How did the pandemic affect you in North Carolina? Because being here in California, I'm sure things were quite a bit different. But I mean, did it? How did it hit you guys?
It was like a it was like a cut that just kept steadily, just slowly bleeding out. Like I remember we stopped teaching live classes in person around that March. And it was
Hmm.
interesting because I had so the story goes like this. So I fly out to California. I'm over in Carlsbad. I did a course through Unbeatable Mind with Mark Devine, and it was the last weekend when flights were available to go anywhere. And I
Hmm.
remember flying out there, and there's like no one on the seat next to me here, here, or here. And then I was on the way back. There's no one on the seat here, here, or here, and I'm like, this is weird. And I get back and I open up class that Monday, and I had maybe 5 people total show up. No, that Tuesday, and I was like, maybe they don't know I'm back yet. Let's give it one more day. So that Wednesday, I opened up for class. Same thing, 5 people. I was like, oh, we got to do something now. So we moved it completely to virtual, and a lot of kids did really great with it. A lot didn't. So I started going out of my way. I started planning out like private virtual lessons for kids like once a week. I was like, if you can't do the class, get with me here. And I remember getting here at like 9 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, either
Hmm.
doing as time progressed from April, May, June, July, August, September. Throughout those months, as time got closer to October, I remember I was getting like semi privates, just trying to get little groups in, just here and there to whatever people would come in for. And then October, we were able to open back up. Very like this class schedule changed, and it was interesting. But it was like it was great seeing. Like I remember going to Food Line, and I hadn't been like in front of a group of people in a while. And like 4 kids came up that were from different families from here and talking to me at the same time. And I was like, whoa, what is this? I'm not used to people around me. What's going on? And getting the classes kicked back in again. And a majority of what we've got now is probably newer students in the last year.
Hmm.
A small advanced class that are training for their black belts that have been that stuck with it the whole time. A few have come back, but it's been mostly just getting new people back in the door, introduced to what we've got going on here.
Hmm. Yeah, and just like it sounds like a lot of other instructors that I've talked to, whatever had to happen, whether it was doing it on Zoom, doing it outside, doing private
A lot
lessons,
of that
doing
too outside. I
right. I
remember
mean,
getting
just like
sunburnt.
right. I mean, but it goes back once again to to that work ethic because there's let's call it what it is. There's a lot of people that just took it as an excuse as, oh well, I mean, I guess we just take some time off and take a break, and then like nobody comes back. It sounds like for you. You went out of your way to make things happen, and still you're not going to get everybody back. I mean, we know that, but you're getting new people in the door again, and your reputation is what keeps your name out there. So that's great because you're involved in the community. Um,
That
so
was
if
one of
things
the
are going,
biggest things for me right there is what you just said. It was like it kind of hit me because I remember saying this to my wife Crystal about it. It's like I think I was like almost in tears talking about it because it was like I'm working with these kids, and for us it's been in martial arts or any youth sports that you're having continued contact with people for like years. Sometimes
Mhm.
you get really connected, and I was like my kids are having everything ripped from them. And I was like, if I can find a way to stay in front of them just to give them that little bit of something that they're used to having to see each and every day, I'm gonna figure out a way to do it. Because
Right.
me and my wife, we didn't have internet at the house. We just didn't need it. We had our cell phones. That was it. And then they threw out this thing around April, I think is what it was. And they're like, hey, as of this time, you're gonna have to be at your house. It's like that lockdown that we had to go through or whatnot.
Right.
I'm calling up the phone call. It's like, hey, I need this next week. What can we do? I was going to teach out of my off my porch if I had to,
Hmm.
and we put internet in just to make sure we had that as backup.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's awesome. I mean, again, a testament to you as an instructor and as a leader in your school that you put the thoughts of the kids because, like you said, everything was being ripped away from them. Everything that they knew that was quote normal, right, had been ripped away. And so if we could give them just one shred of normalcy, or give them that boost in confidence, or let them know, hey, we're all. I remember one event we did. It wasn't even a karate class for a little while on Saturdays. We were just having a meetup where
Yeah.
everybody, we would open up a Zoom meeting and we just have everybody in the school meet up, and we came up with little icebreaker games and fun little things where people can tell us what's your favorite movie, or something like that. And and the connection, that personal connection with our students was so important to maintain at that time. So things are going good now, though, right? Things are kind of back open.
Back open. I'm not going as full blast as I was. I've actually kept it down to a level that's been very beneficial where I don't feel like I'm trying to burn myself out at the same time.
Right.
And but you said that I want to bounce back really fast. I remember going through like two particular Zoom calls with some of my kids, and one of them was a 5-year-old that just wanted to talk about sand and sharks and the beach. And then like we had did like lunches and stuff like that as well, where some of the kids would jump on, they would tell me about Star Wars and everything along that lines.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, this for as of right now, the school is going much better. It's like the
Good.
overhead's cut back. I don't have as much going on with that, and it's been really nice getting to know everybody again, connecting with the new people.
Right, for sure. No, well, that's great to hear. Let's talk a little bit more about the obstacle course running courses, long distance running. I remember when you first started, and I forget the gentleman's name. There was a guy that you ran with that got you into it, and you started doing like these 50 and 100-mile races, and I'm like, dude, that's intense. Like I love the Spartan races because I actually get a little break from the running in between the obstacles. But you started telling me about all this stuff, and I just thought it was so fascinating. And to me, it's like that's just that's huge. I don't know a lot of people that are running 50 and 100-mile races. So tell me about how you got into that, and let's just talk about those experiences a little bit.
Yeah, gotcha. So roughly around 2010, I believe it was, I was hitting about 205 pounds ish. And at 5'5", it just kind of just set on me. And I had my blood work done and it came back. And I was like, I reached out to the guy. His name was Chris Canoodle. They called him the
Chris,
Irish
there you go.
Goat. Yeah.
Right, that's
And
right.
I showed him the work. And I was like, man, I was like, what can we do about this? He goes, you could run. I was like, my knee. I tried this. I got drop foot thing happening. My foot didn't want to work like it's supposed to. He goes, well, you could run. I'm like, okay, I guess we're gonna try this whole running thing. And I remember he took me to Kiwanis Park, which is like a little park down the road here. There's a mile trail. And I felt like it took about 30 plus minutes, maybe 45 to walk a mile. And I was like, man, I was like, this is horrible. I don't like this at all. I do want to run. He slowly started building me up and getting me going in the distance. And the first race he got me to sign up for was called the Krispy Kreme Challenge. All right.
I
Now we
remember
all know
that.
what Krispy Kreme donuts are. What you got to do is you got to run roughly 2.5 miles to where the donuts are at. Eat a dozen donuts and then make it back in under an hour. That's the goal. So you're looking at like, yeah, exactly. And so we had like this. He even had like I don't know how Chris came up with this, but he had an idea about you took 6 donuts, and these ain't the ones like the light is on and they're warm. These are like the fundraiser donuts, so they're kind of cold, they're kind of hard, and you took 6 of them and you smashed them together into a brisket. And the goal was you eat it in like 4 bites, take a little bit of water, smash the other 6, get about 6 bites, and then take off. And oh man, it was a blast because we had like 12 or 14 people with us, and we were all wearing like full ninja uniforms, like the mask on our face and the hood and everything. And I remember before the race even started, there was a group because it's at a college, NC State, and there was a group dressed up in full like Spartan attire. So there's this old picture from 2012, I think is when it was, and it's like the ninjas are facing off against the Spartans in front of the clock
Nice.
tower. It was so awesome. And I started getting more and more involved with it. He's like, well, let's do this. He goes, let's sign you up for a marathon. I was like, dude, that's 20 more miles. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, you'll be fine. You got 9 months to get ready. I was like, ugh. Like, all right, well, let's see what happens. So I signed up for one at the Outer Banks. It's about a month and a half out, and I have not been training. He took me for a 17-mile run, walk, hike, me complaining, and it's September, early September, and I'm like just drenched in sweat, not having any fun. I'm like, man, I'm not doing this marathon. This is not going to happen. And then at the end of the month, he says, how's your running going? I was like, it goes down the street and back. That's about it. That's all I got. He goes, come with me this weekend. It's the Henson Lake 24-hour run. I was like, I got to run for 24 hours? He goes, no, just you come do what you can do. You volunteer for a little while and we'll get you in. I was like, all right. So we get up together. We ride down on a Friday night. And I got up that Saturday morning at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock. And there's like a couple hundred people out here, maybe 300 or so. And they're like, we're getting ready to go around this 1.5 mile loop around a lake. And I remember me and Chris, we take off and we do like the first lap, 15 minutes. We did the second lap. We're done in 30 minutes total. And Chris is like, man, we just did 30 minutes and 2 miles. We got to pick this pace up. I'm like, it don't feel like a 15-minute mile pace. This feels fast. And he forgot that it was a mile and a half course. So we're
Hmm.
like burning our energy up a little bit and we slowed down. And I remember something happened with him. He took a short little break and I just kept on cruising. It'd be like a little run, it'd be a little walk, a little run, a little walk. And I want to say I finished up about 30 miles and I went to do my volunteer shift for about 3 hours. And then my phone goes bing, bing, bing. There's a tornado happening like 45 miles down the road. It could be coming our way. And we're like, well, I guess we'll get prepared if that happens. And I got done with my volunteer. Tornado passes us by, didn't bother us none. And I'm sitting talking to the guy next to me and I look at him. I'm like, can I go back out and do some more miles? He goes, go ahead. And I got out there and I want to say I did like 43 miles that night. That was the first time.
Wow.
And there was something that clicked in my head that goes, you didn't have to stop. And that was what really got me. And I've been doing, with the exception of 2020, when they didn't hold the race, I've been there every year since 2012, getting out there and knocking out the miles. And that's like when I was messaging you, I was shooting for that 100K. And I was like, all right, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning here. Who's awake right now? I gotta send them. Cause I'm like, you're by yourself, and
Yeah.
you've got to find ways to keep yourself motivated because I've attempted 200 milers in my life and only got 100K distance where I just couldn't get any further or my time was running out or something like that. And it's like you got to figure out things to keep your mind off the pain. All right. Cause you're going to have your feet hurt. You're going to scratch your legs. Something's going to go out. It's not going to always work out perfect. And being like, letting it brush off. And so that's where I was like shooting messages to people. I'm like, who's up? Oh, yeah, my California people. They're up at this time right now because it's only 11 o'clock where they're at. I'm shooting some messages out.
Nice. So you attempted 200 milers, but so what does 100K translate to miles?
Anywhere between like 62 and 63, 64 miles. It's
Okay.
always like 100K ish
Right.
because there's no exact distance once you start getting that far into it. So you could be like, well, 62 miles is 100K. That's not too bad. All right, got it. And then all of a sudden you get 62 miles in, you're like, I still got 3 more miles to go. And 3 miles
Hmm.
don't sound like a lot, but after 62, that's like almost 2 hours sometimes,
For
if not
sure. For
more.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean, that to me, I remember the first time that I had a black belt, a friend of mine who, I was the same way. Like running was not my thing. Like I don't need to run. I'm a big guy. I'll stand and
I
fight.
got my
Um,
hands up.
right. But I don't want to run. And then I found it. His name was Sergio Perez. He says, let's go run. Okay, we start running. We started making running part of like every black belt team. Every black belt started hating us because all we did was run all the time. But then I found the Spartan races, and for me, that's what made running fun because I love being outdoors. I grew up, playing outside in the dirt in the mountains and you know hiking trails, all that stuff. So running the Spartans became really, really fun for me. I think I ran my first Spartan in 2012. My brother had actually done it before me, and he says, "Hey, you'll like this. It'll be fun." And I was, you talked about being 205 at 5'5". I was, I think, 240, 245. I'm 5'10. And I ran the 8 mile, the super distance, and I hated every bit of it while I was doing it for the most part because I knew how bad I was sucking. And it was really, really hard. But after I was done, I was like, oh, I got to do this again. Like, I have got to get out on this course again. And I got to lose some weight to do it, right? So when was your first Spartan race?
Somewhere around 2014. Cause
Okay.
I'd done a couple of Tough Mudders,
Yep.
and you look online and you hear the stories about Spartan being harder and this and that, and I was like, I don't know if I want to go out with all that. And then I was running with a buddy of mine during one of the Tough Mudders. I was like, man, do you think I can do a Spartan? I mean, what's the story about? I know you've done it. He goes, oh man, you'll have a blast at it. I was like, all right, next year, boom,
Right.
trifecta, sprint, super beast. And I and we had so much fun at the sprint. Like 6 of us went, and I started telling everybody about it. And then we got a group of 19 of us to go to a super. All right. And I told everybody, look, it's only 7 or 8 miles. That's it. Not going to be that bad. Well, part of the part I didn't know about, hindsight being 2020, was it was at a double black diamond resort, ski resort.
Mhm.
And it was 7 miles or maybe eight. I don't remember now, but I remember our overall pace was 52 minutes a mile. And we got everybody through it. It was poor. I mean, it was during the summertime, so you're thinking we're going to be battling the heat here in North Carolina or in Virginia with the humidity, but it was a complete overcast. People were getting like chills. It was raining the whole time. I remember the mud crawl was up a slope, and you would get about 3 good pulls and then slide back half. I
Oof.
mean, it was brutal. Like we have people like locking up with the legs and stuff like that. And but we always had this deal. We all started together. We all going to finish together. And even if we had to stand it, like even if we'd run a little ways up and then come back, we kept everybody moving across that finish line.
Right.
Some people that was their very first Spartan and their last. And then some, it was their first, and they're like, when's the next one? And we
Right.
just kept on moving with it. And
Yeah.
then last year, I did like I signed up for the ultra a couple of times and just never like followed through with it. But this past November, I did the first Spartan Ultra. It was like 9 hours out there. Like you started off in the morning. Oh man, this is funny. I had to give you this one. I took off and there's like frost on everything. It's like 28 degrees. And
Oof.
I'm like trying to keep myself warm because I know once I get moving, I'll be fine. We're about 2 miles into this race, and I'm coming down this one little slope. And there's a guy about 15 paces in front of me. There's a person 15 paces behind me, and there's this heel coming down from the right. And you heard what sounded almost like thunder earthquake feel across the ground. Had I been 5 steps faster, this deer come running down between me and the guy in front of me. He saw me. We made eye contact, and the deer goes and spins out in front of me. And I'm like freaked out by this for like half a second. I'm like, what? That right there. And the guy in front of me turns around and goes, what was that? The guy behind me goes, man, my dude up here almost got hit by a deer.
That's crazy. That's probably one of the funniest stories that I've heard on a Spartan. I mean, man, I've been out there. Um, I've done a couple dozen races. I've never done the ultra. I've always wanted to. I have not run a marathon ever. I signed up for LA 2 years ago, and ended up getting COVID. Is why I did not do it. And so I still haven't run that LA marathon. And so I'm like always hesitant. I'm like, why would I go run an ultra if I've never even run a marathon? I mean, you just got to do it, right? I mean, I know what you're thinking in your head. Just get out there and do it. But yeah, we've had some teams go out. I think we're going to put together a team to do the Dodger Stadium, a
Nice.
stadium race. Those
Yeah.
are kind of fun. It's not the same as being out, but every date I look at in California and every date I look at that's fairly close, studio has black belt testing, or we got this or we got that. But we're getting back into it again. I mean, I have a blast out there. It's such a fun time.
And it's all about just consistently moving forward. It's
Mhm.
like not taking, like I remember my first 50-mile race that I did was called the Boogie 50 miler. And my coach told me, Chris, he goes, when you get into the camp or this aid stations, don't stay more than 2 minutes because everybody's there is pumping you up. They want to see you win. They want to see you get out there. They want to see you keep going, but it feels so good that you don't want to leave.
Mm,
And I remember my first 50K I ever did was just treat it like it's a day at work. Just stay moving. I got done in like 7 hours, 15 minutes. And, most people work an 8 hour work day anyway. So it's just keeping that progression going forward for me.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, that's intense. That's super cool though. Awesome. Well, listen, thank you for sharing all that, and talking about the martial arts, and just kind of, it's been great to catch up with you here online
Yeah,
today. I hope that everybody watching, you guys have enjoyed this, and if you enjoyed it, share it and let everybody else watch it and hear from Mr. Jackson. Can you just close the show with your final thoughts? Anything that might give motivation, inspiration to anybody, martial arts or not, that's just watching right now?
I ended with a quote that I picked up. I heard from a buddy. I say a buddy of mine. I've never met the guy. Eric Thomas. I remember him saying that when the effort is low, the focus is on the obligation and not the opportunity. And that one's
Mm,
always meant something to me. It's like, when I didn't have the effort going into something, it's like, all right, what is my focus on? And it was the workouts, it was the training, it was all of this versus, you know, like I remember going out for the ultra before the ultra started. I bought the hoodie with the intention I'm going to finish this ultra. And I left it in the plastic bag because if I didn't finish the ultra, I was going to turn it back in and get my money
mm.
back. But I was like, I gotta go ahead and stay focused on getting that buckle.
That's awesome. That's a cool quote. Well, thank you for sharing everything with us today, talking with me. Hope again everybody watching enjoyed this. Check us out next week. We got Master Fari from Australia coming on, and
Nice.
we got a bunch of guests still coming on over the next couple weeks. Let's see, we got a comment here. Oh, thank you. Courtney is watching. She said that was some great motivation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so just keep watching, guys, and go to our YouTube channel and check out some of the past guests. I've had the opportunity to talk with some really amazing people and hear their stories. So go check it out, Master Jason Flame on YouTube and on Facebook and Instagram as well. And Mr. Jackson, thank you so much. I hope to see you at the Super Show.
I appreciate it. Yeah, coming up in July, right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thank you again, man.
Back
I
in
appreciate the
back
time.
in Vegas. Yeah, thank you, sir. Take care. We'll see you soon. All right, guys, make it a great week. We'll talk soon. See ya.